Hello and welcome. This is Inside Sources. My name is Laolu Akode. You are welcome to the show. But first, let me commiserate with the family, the wife, the children, the people of Ondo State and all Nigerians on the passing away of a man of courage, Harakunrin Rotimi Akeredolu. We pray that his memory will remain blessed. And here is my take for the week. Tomorrow, hopefully, the National Assembly will approve the budget of renewed hope presented to it by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If there is one thing we all agree about, it's about how difficult the times are, especially economically, for most Nigerians. Therefore, it is important, in my view, that the governments, both at the federal and state level, pay attention to these four critical things in order to deliver the goods in the budgets. The first is the fiscal crisis. Nigeria must raise enough revenue to scale down the impact and the perception of a soaring national debt. Nigeria's debt, as at the middle of this year, that is in June, stood at over 87 trillion. That is something to worry about. When you also look at how much of the budget of renewed hope will be spent on debt, over 8 trillion for debt servicing alone, then we know that this is actually a real problem. But this problem can be scaled down by effective revenue generation, especially at the federal level. And good a thing, the Oyedele Tax Reform Committee seems to be working on the right track. Second is the crisis of food inflation. With food inflation at 32% in November, that is 8% higher than what was recorded last year, November. How many Nigerians can we say actually afforded a Merry Christmas? As a nation, we must work both as government and people to change this scenario. Government has to significantly bring down the prices of basic food commodities. The saying goes that when feeding is removed from poverty, the misery of poverty is gone. The third crisis is the crisis of procurement. Government must address the crisis of procurement in order for the people to benefit fully from these budgets, especially at such a time as this, when the nation is faced with unprecedented economic challenges. Billions should not be allowed to sink in procurement fraud and other infractions, especially occasioned by over-bloated costs of goods and services. We know that normally governments always have a higher price than market rates. But the time has come for there to be a downward review of these things, because even it's a tough time for government incomes. Lastly is the crisis of government insensitivity. We know a lot about what is happening with the prices out there, and subsidy is gone. So the average Nigerian is battling to survive. Therefore, government that is asking the people to bear the pain, to be patient, and to wait for remedy cannot afford to give an impression of excess and all kinds of frivolous spendings that do not convey sensitivity to the plight of most Nigerians. When you see leaders throwing big parties and some importing 160 million worth of SUV for themselves, this is not a good indication, and it has come to the level of a crisis. The government must address the crisis of this kind of insensitivity to the predicament of the masses, so that the budgets can deliver the goods. These major four crises, among others, should be addressed. And once this is done, we can all expect a wonderful new year in 2024. And that is my take for this week. Inside Sources, we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Inside Sources. And today I have a unique guest, a leading Nigerian politician, former governor of Zamfara State, and a former senator of the Nigerian Senate. I am delighted to have with me today Alhaji Sani Ahmed Yerima. You're welcome, Excellency, to the program.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming. We will be having a conversation on the future of Nigeria. But first, something happened in 2007 when you were running for presidency, I believe, under AMPP.
Yes.
Political analysts said clearly that you are ahead in the race. But something happened at the convention. You stepped down. Do you want to tell us the story? What actually happened to make you step down on that occasion?
You see, first of all, the Yar'adua Consultative Forum had a meeting in Kaduna and announced that they have endorsed President Muhammadu Buhari as the sole candidate of the North. And they set up a committee to go around to all the contestants of various political parties and talk to us to please step down for Buhari so that the North can have a single candidate. They came to me and I listened to them and I said, I'll think over it. But President Obasanjo, made sure that he brought General Babangida, who's still alive, and begged him to talk to me. He is in PDP.
Is it true that General Obasanjo did not want you to run against?
Yeah, he didn't want me to run against Yar'adua because at that time, the security report showed him, according to my information, that because I had all the delegates in my hand, except Kano and Katsina, that I left for Buhari at that time. I had all the state chairmen of NPP, of all the 36 states and Abuja supporting me. And I had, if the government knew that if I got the ticket, that is going to be a very difficult task for PDP to win, for Yar'adua to become the president. And then Mr. Obasanjo now sent an aircraft to bring IBB and requested him to please talk to me so that I can step down for Buhari. I didn't know until when I stepped down and Babangida sent Engineer Kure, the former governor of Niger State.
Joanna Kure?
No, Engineer Abdulkadir Kure, former governor of Niger State.
Niger State, right.
And the former governor of Sokoto State, who is still alive, Bafarawa, they were sent to come to me. Bafarawa. And to beg me to step down on behalf of...
Was then General Buhari aware of all of this?
Yes, because one day now talked to... IBB first called me and said, Senator Yerima, I say, yes, sir. IBB, I say, yes, sir, I have your number. Then he said, I've never asked you for any favor in my life. I say, yes, sir.
That was IBB?
Yes. He said, I'm going to ask you one favor. I say, I've done it for you, sir. I didn't know what favor he wanted to ask me for. He said, okay, I will not tell you on phone, but I'm going to send Bafarawa and Engineer Kure to you to inform you. They came to me in the night after 8 o'clock. After greeting, I asked my people to go out. And they said, IBB send them to me. I said, yes. He said, you are coming. He said, they say the only favor he wants you to do for him is to step down for Buhari tomorrow. Wow. The convention was tomorrow.
So IBB was asking you to step down for Buhari.
I said, tell him I have accepted. I've already told him. I've committed myself that I was going to do the favor for him. Then they say, no. He said, whatever your answer is, we should call him and then you will tell him by yourself. And they called IBB and I told him, sir, tomorrow I'm going to step down for Buhari.
Wow.
And immediately they left, I went to the national chairman, Chief Edwin Emezeki, and told him that tomorrow I'm going to step down for Buhari. He said, oh my God, he started dancing. I didn't know that he was also promised.
Dancing.
Yes, he was promised the vice presidential candidate.
Interesting.
And in the morning, in that night, he told Buhari, and Buhari was telling me that he didn't believe that issue until when I climbed the podium and announced that because they changed the program at the convention in Benue, Eagle Square.
Right.
The timetable was that after the opening prayer, then there will be national chairman's opening remark. Then all the candidates will start talking. But they changed it. After opening prayer, they say Yerima was going to speak.
Interesting.
So they called me and then they asked me to talk, and I announced my stepping down, and I appealed to all other candidates
to also
step down, and they did. And Buhari became the only candidate.
Interesting story. Excellency, I want to ask you, how do you see the insecurity that has become a major problem in Zamfara and other parts of northwestern Nigeria, seeing the level of devastation and how it has affected the development of the state?
Well, it's a very unfortunate problem, and it's disheartening to see Zamfara, the northern Nigeria of today, the way things are going as far as insecurity is concerned. People cannot go about their normal businesses. It has affected all sectors of life, human life, from agriculture to social life to economic situation in the north. And I believe that government, national government, has pledged to do a lot. In fact, just a few days ago, Mr. President was in Maiduguri, and he has assured the nation that he will never allow insecurity to defeat his ambition to make Nigeria move forward. And he has challenged the army and the other security agencies to make sure they're up and doing so that this menace can be controlled.
Excellency, there is a certain level of buzz, that we pick about how some of the communities have become somewhat intertwined with some of the terrorists, to the extent that there are instances where the communities even feel protected, by some of these bandits. Do you think this is something to be really bothered about? In your view, have you picked up that kind of buzz also?
Yes, you see, when a common man has no alternative, he can resort to any other means of making sure that he gets protection for himself and for his life to move forward. These people have gone so far to the extent that they are not only charging communities, villages, money to give them, to guarantee their safety, but they not only kidnap, they are now making sure that they are like landlords in various communities and villages. They decide when even people should sleep, when they go to their farms, what they do and what they don't do. So, but I think that, like I said earlier, the government of the day is aware of all these problems. And I think the level of equipment they are purchasing now, and the level of confidence I had from Mr. President's speech in Maiduguri, I am confident that this menace will soon go over.
So while we're at it, so there was this unfortunate bombing of Tudumbiri in Kaduna State by the military. And not a few of our northern brothers have said that, that wasn't a mistake. And what's your take? How do you read that situation?
I don't think any sane person will believe that the military will just go take aircraft and bomb the citizens of Nigeria for no reason, just maybe to achieve whatever aim and object. I don't know, because I believe that there has to be investigations going on, but I'm sure there must be some mistakes around that area. And because in fighting insecurity, there's always going to be possibility of collateral damages. That is why I mentioned that, you see, by the time you go to fight these insurgents, these bandits, there could be some people who are ignorant of what is going to happen in the area. Surveys may have taken place. Securities, they have to do their own investigation. The SSS are doing their own, the police are doing their own, and the military are doing their own. There has to be synergy and coordination. But in the process, there must be some collateral damages. So I think we should wait for the investigation. The federal government has directed investigation of what happened. And by the time the result of investigation is out, we'll know whether there is some lapses in the area, in the military, the way they handle the matter or not. But I think there is no way anybody in his right state of mind will take aircraft and bomb a village or gathering of people deliberately without reason for doing that.
Thank you, Excellency. I mean, coming from you, that is quite reassuring. So let's get to the to the issue of the future of Nigeria. Now, I'm just going to ask you a very simple question. Do you think that as a country we are on course to that great country that we all dream of? Are we on course?
I am sure, I have confidence that we're on course. You see, people don't understand that human development is not static, it's dynamic. You find that at every stage and at every point in time, you have not only the leadership, even the followership, the citizens. There are so many responsibilities that they have to do in order to achieve the objective of governance. We have let me start from Shehu Shagari regime to various military regimes of Babangida, Abacha, and Shonaikan, and up to Musa Yar'adua, Obasanjo, and so on. Every government that comes in will come up with a program. And that program is not only to be implemented by government. There is the role and responsibility of the citizenry. If they don't do their part very well, for example, you come up with anchor programs, you come up with money, that you have to, government intends to invest, in agriculture. And it is these citizens of Nigeria that are supposed to take this money and invest in their farms and produce what the government is estimated to achieve. Because it is not the government that will come directly and go to the farmers and to the farms and produce food crops or cash crops or whatever they plan. Only government will plan, they will budget for it, and there is going to be the role of the citizens. So one, I think we need to engage in massive public awareness campaign, because some people who took the money from government saw it as their own part, what they call national cake. And they divert the money into some social activities, marriages, building of houses, other investments that are not, meant for it. So I think government, for example, this current government came up with a program called Renewed Hope Agenda. And if you look at that document, you see what the federal government wants to do in agriculture. If you see what it's intended to do is small and medium scale industries. But it is not the government alone. The general public have to play their own role. But therefore, the government has to do a lot in mobilizing the public to support the program and participate effectively so I have serious hope that Nigeria one day is going to, in fact, not only one day, I think with the current administration, it's just 6 months, and the budget presented this year, 2024 budget, if it is implemented as designed, I think you will see some relative changes in the level of poverty that we are facing today.
Yeah, so Excellency, so quite a bit of your analysis so far, you put quite a big brunt on the people.
Yeah.
But the government, the leadership, they wield the power. So you spoke about people getting grants and loans and mismanaging it. But it's also the responsibility of government to ensure that when that happens, it is punished. That has not happened many times. But I also wanted to frame it in a different way for you, that if you look at the people who were at the same level with Nigeria, for instance, look at China. In 1960, Nigeria was way ahead of China in terms of the projections. But between 1960 and now, China has gone so far ahead of us. You're right that, human societies are dynamic, but I don't think that we have spent enough time to look at the leadership problem. Do you think that if the leadership gets it right, that the followers or the following will be behaving in the way that you have described? Because they have the hammer. The government has the hammer.
You have already said the reason why things were not working in Nigeria. That is the level of corruption. And this corruption is not just from the management of the government. It's not from the officers charged with the responsibility of delivering the goods and services. Like I said, even the citizens themselves. I can remember that when we were coming up, if you are employed in the federal service or any service of the state, once you come home and start dishing out money to people, or you come as a very brand new car, they will say this person has gotten a very good job. They will not investigate, they will not mind how you get the money to buy your house or you buy a car. The family, the society will say, you are not, if they don't care about how morality level, you try to achieve. The fact is that, like I said, we need to mobilize our citizens. China had a very large population, but the leadership, like I said, you already said it, lack of punishment. There has to be those people, whoever commit offense, there has to be seen, practically people should be seen that government is up and doing. The EFCC, the ICPC must not be seen to be doing some selective justices. The courts must be up and doing, that if somebody is arrested and investigated, he must be seen to be taken to prison, not only for political reason, but for the fact that he has been found guilty of whatever has been charged. So there has to be punishment for various crimes in order to make sure that our society changes. And I believe that the current administration is aware of all this, and I hope the agencies that are charged with responsibilities. In the past, you have problem of coordination in terms of security apparatus operations. But I think now with what I have heard from the National Security Advisor, Yar'adua, I think they are having synergy in operation of the security services. He has had many meetings in his office with the service chief. I have seen it in the national network television. And I'm sure that with the coordination of security agencies, you find that people are going to be up and doing. You can see from what is happening in Central Bank, it's giving us a big hope that people cannot just do something and get away with it.
So I wanted to ask you a direct question on the issue of electoral reforms. Now, you were also, I think you were in the Senate when former president, late president Musa Yar'adua actually came out after the election and said, look, I know that there are problems with our electoral system, even with my own election. And he went ahead to set up the Ways Commission. Do you think that President Tinubu should do the same thing?
Yes. You see, our electoral system has a lot of problems. And people are making a kind of do-or-die effort to ensure that they win election at all costs. And the system is allowing it. What happens in some states, in the election in the past, you find that some security agencies are compromised, the electoral empire is compromised, and now people are not happy with the judicial decisions taken in various instances of election tribunal methods. So I believe that Mr. President should look at that area and make sure that there is robust reform to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in the process. And anybody who is found wanting, like I said, should be made to face the wrath of the law. And once he has done that, once there is transparency and accountability in the electoral process, he has already won election. And I'm sure that the programs he has set out to achieve, if they are properly implemented, he doesn't need to campaign so much to make sure to get a second term. But I'm sure that he also knows that he's accountable not only to people but to God Almighty. So I'm sure that the reforms are needed, and I hope he will soon come up with robust programs and policy that will make us to achieve the electoral reform. We need it in Nigeria.
I want to ask you, what are your regrets, having served as governor for 8 years and senators for as long? Are there things that you look back and you wonder you could have done differently?
Well, I look at myself, I look at the years of service I put in place, even before I became governor. And fortunately, from the assessment I'm hearing from people, the response that I'm receiving from my people in Zamfara State in particular, and when I was in the National Assembly from my senatorial constituency, I get confidence and I believe that I have done my best. I don't see any regret that I have not done one way or another. But I'm sure that the people know what I did. And if you go to my constituency today, as a state as a whole, at state level, you will hear the response of the people. I did my best because I made sure that I served the people, because I knew that I'm not only going to be accountable to the people when I present myself for election again, but I know that I'm going to be accountable to God Almighty, because that everybody that is in the system knows that in life, he will not remain here forever. We have seen some people who have served before us. If you go to government house, you see, in fact, I was the first civilian governor, but I still had a military administrator's picture in my office. I knew I was going to leave the office one day, and I knew that people will judge me, and God Almighty will also judge me on what I've done.
And I know that you're a very, Nigerians know that you're a very deeply religious person. So I want to ask you too, the place, as we begin to conclude, the place of religion and ethnicity in Nigeria's politics has been quite a bit stormy. As a matter of fact, there are those who say that, during the administration of President Buhari, Northerners were placed everywhere that's critical. And there are those that are saying now that under President Tinubu, you have people from the Southwest all over the place. Do you agree with that, those claims? And how do you think we can use religion and ethnicity in a positive way for the future of Nigeria?
We have started already. You see, before I became governor, when you talk of Sharia, there's always crisis between Muslims and Christians. So when I announced I was going to do Sharia, even Mr. President Obasanjo was worried. But I told them, and even international community were worried. But I told them, look, I was elected under the 1999 Constitution, and I cannot do anything outside 1999 Constitution. And that is what made the international community to say, okay, let's watch him and see what he's going to do, including Mr. Persuaded himself. And by the time I finished my program, and today, you find that the crisis in terms of Sharia is gone. When Mr. President came up with a vice president who is a Muslim, they started talking about Muslim ticket. It's going to be bad for Nigeria. But today, people are looking at it as not a problem. So it's part of societal development. Ethnicity will continue to play a role so long as we have Northwest, Hausa Fulani, Northeast, Kanuri, Hausa Fulani, Southwest, Yorubas, South, Ijos, Ishekiri, and others. Southeast, you have Igbos, and so on and so on. But in future, once we develop the culture of citizenship, we have to now encourage the idea of, I am a Nigerian citizen, I help from, not that I help from Enugu, I help from Zamfara. We have to develop the idea of citizenship, like every other country. In Europe, in America, you have diversity in religion, you have diversity in tribe, but they don't talk about culture or religion, or ethnicities. They talk about national interest. Therefore, we have to develop that. And I think those of us who are blessed by going through Western education, those of us who are blessed by being in government, should come together and make sure that this issue of religion is no longer available. You see, and the issue of Southwest dominating, Northern people dominating the system, once you are elected and you have a program, you look at people who you know can help you to deliver the program you have for the nation. And unfortunately, those who are so close to you will be first in the line that you will be thinking of. So it's not an issue of Mr. President taking Yorubas or Mr. President taking Hausas, Buhari taking Hausas, and so on. There are people that you know in politics that are very close to you. It's not every position that you can trust just anybody And suddenly he was that responsibility to implement the programs that you want him to do. However, look at today's component of governance. The Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Alhaji Atiku Bagudu, is from Kebbi State. He is the chief coordinator of the whole government programs and projects. He presented the budget. He is coordinating the budget. And you cannot say that he's going to leave Kebbi State or leave northern Nigeria from this thing. The Minister of Defense is from Jigawa State. So the issue of who is where and where should not be an issue. We should look at us as Nigerians. Like I said, we should develop the culture of citizenship and make sure that we have seen a citizen who is capable of handling something, and then he's saddled with that responsibility, and encourage him to deliver.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for your time and for the opportunity to have this conversation with you and Nigerians. Inside Sources, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Moving along today, I have a second guest, Mr. Fred Eno, who until a few months ago was a senior advisor to the United Nations Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, I imagine, for the last at least 10 years. Fred?
Last 8 years.
Last 8 years. Good to see you, Fred.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
The last time I saw you, you were hanging out with the president after he spoke at the Onga speech in the protocol room. I could see you on the TV screen.
Oh, well. It's part of a day's job, as we say.
Exactly. Well, so there is this issue that a lot of us are focused on, and I thought it would be important to look at it from the Nigerian side. I mean, look at what is happening in Gaza. Besides the political problem that is going on there and all the differences, it's a serious humanitarian crisis. And Nigerians can see that. The whole world can see that because the Western media is paying good attention to that. But you have worked in the last 8 years, in the UN humanitarian assistance work in this country, especially in the north. Can you compare the situation? How serious is the humanitarian crisis in our country?
Extremely serious, if I may begin in that way and manner. And not to ignore it, I think the Gaza situation is quite tragic. But the Gaza situation, as bad as the prolonged Palestinian question has been, the Gaza situation started a day after October 7th. And so it's been barely a couple of months now. In this country, we sat down here and saw 8.7 million of our own citizens facing death, starvation, and hunger, and disease, and all forms of violations of their rights over a prolonged period from about 2012, when the insurgency was at its peak, until 2015. We did not have to wait for the international community to declare a level 3 emergency for us to respond.
What's a level 3 emergency?
Well, a level 3 emergency in humanitarian parlance, if I may use that phrase, has to do with an emergency situation where the scale of the emergency, the complexity of what led to the emergency, the capacity to respond to that emergency, and then, of course, the urgency. And the fifth aspect of it was basically the reputational risk of the United Nations and good citizens of the world not to respond. So as at 2015, 2016, when this level 3 emergency was declared in Nigeria, 8.7 million of our own citizens, women, men, children, majority of whom are children, were literally dying from starvation, not because of drought, not because of a hurricane, but because of a conflict that was being perpetrated by us. Because as much as we can ignore it, I tell people any day they care to listen, that Boko Haram did not come from space. So this was something that, yes, I can understand when you make a comparison to Gaza now, because we don't want to see people suffer in that way. But truly, what I saw in my first visit as a reporting officer for the UN in 2015 in the Northeast was the images I saw of Ethiopia in 1985.
Wow.
And we were still living in the rest of the country as if nothing was happening.
So you think that there has been a level of complacency, and not just on the part of the government, I'm arguing. Do you think that as a people, we have become complacent? Of course, both government and the people, have we become complacent if we were to compare what has been happening in the Northeast? I'm going to get to the point of discussing what the situation is today.
Yes.
But I want you to first of all, tell me if you think there's been a level of complacency on our part, all of us as a people.
I mean, if I were to measure the level of complacency, it was astronomical. And that complacency is what has contributed to a situation now where it's as if we've become numb to the violence, numb to the sufferings that are going on, including in the Northeast. So the complacency goes across board. Of course, governments have to take responsibility. Individuals who are holding positions of authority have to take responsibility. But citizens too have to and have a role to play. But like I told you, I guess, and one of the things I've been wondering of why this complacency has been so prolonged is simply because our civil society, our community-based organizations, for a long time have been so used to doing political work. And they looked at the aspect of dealing with humanitarian crisis as if it was something about pity and charity.
But the point is, even do we even think that that problem existed?
No, we lived in denial for a long time. I accept that fact. And I think it's also, without wanting to give an excuse for Boko Haram and the insurgency, it's also got to do with that fact that we lived for a very long time and thought it was somebody else's problem. And so we almost lived in that denial. And if we stay in that mold, governments too then seem to, this is a case where government is almost copying what the citizenry is doing. And so I get that aspect of it, but it's also something that this discussion is to ensure that this never happens in this country again.
Now, so going back to the scale of the problem,
yes.
So you've been on this thing for over 8 years now. So you're saying that if we didn't have the kind of assistance that you have witnessed, working with the UN this long, what do you think would have happened?
It's not what would have happened, it's what was happening. I mean, yes, it became easier to talk about it at a later point, but you're driving through the streets, you're driving through some of those camps. I'm calling them camps now because these were where these people congregated, having in Maiduguri, in Damaturu, and other parts of the Northeast. But you go there and they're carrying corpses out every day. So people were dying. And so it's not, I don't speak of those things with any kind of happiness. You don't speak of it in that way. But you could tell that if we did not, and let me exclude myself from that, if the international community did not come to our assistance at that time, millions of Nigerians would have perished and would continue in that denial, behaving as if it was a problem that was limited to the Northeast, and in particular Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states. So it was staring us in the face. It took the courage, and these are individuals too. Yes, they may be staff of the United Nations, because I told you one of the criteria of declaring a level 3 emergency is reputational risk. Reputational risk for the United Nations and the international community.
I see the point.
If you see this kind of suffering going on,
and you don't,
then your own reputation is at stake. Now, I can relay that back to your initial point on Gaza. You see the challenges the United Nations is facing now in dealing with the Gaza situation. That's exactly what it means. You cannot see human suffering at this scale and don't call it out.
Interesting. So I was looking through the figures myself, trying to prepare for this, and it turns out that, and I want you to confirm if this is accurate. It turns out that the international community probably have shelled out at least $7 billion between 2016 and now. Now, if that is true, Fred, can you tell us where the money went?
I can even say it spent a bit more than $7 billion because,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, but I get questioned both by my own friends and family members, and if you may permit me, especially from a different part of the country and a different religion as what is predominant in the area of this crisis. And I tell people all the time, if you see an average teenager, 14, 15, 16, or even children who are 10 years old today, walking around, walking alive in Bama or Banki or Mongunu or the outskirts of Damaturu and all of that.
Yeah.
They're walking alive today because somebody gave them life-saving food and shelter 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago. If you ask me to show you where $10 billion has gone over this time, I will take one of those people and show you. Because I did not come there to build them a house. I came there to save their lives. When I say I'm talking about, I'm bringing it personal now, that even you as a Nigerian, if they say, what did you do with that money? I'll say, turn around and look and see these women and children who are alive today because the United Nations came in, brought in international partners, humanitarian organizations, non-governmental organizations, and that has saved lives.
Interesting.
Now, could there be questions as to whether it was most efficiently used? Yes, we can have that conversation.
Yeah, which is where I want to go. And I wanted you to respond to some of the criticism that says that, so when you have any agency, or donor from the international community make this kind of commitment, financial commitment, that a lot of the money, a lot of the funds, actually go to consultants, most of whom are based abroad. How do you respond to that?
That certainly is not the case here. And by the way, just so you understand, there's always a silver lining to these things. The bulk of this money was spent here. 90% of those who carry out the work are Nigerians.
Wow.
Yes. It's less than 10% who are international staff. Yes, we do have a responsibility to make sure that these funds are and I have to be very clear with you. The donors of this money don't give you breathing space. They want to see it go to those, because they too are accountable to their taxpayers in their own countries. So they will not let you get away with it.
Interesting. So still on the figures. So we're saying that between 2016 and now, the international community has spent about $7 billion just on humanitarian assistance in Nigeria. So if we're spending that much on humanitarian assistance, what does it? My concern is that, does that help even in the alleviation of poverty? Or because it seems to be something that one needs to be clear about.
No, I get, and that's a question that arises all the time. One of my former bosses, who was humanitarian coordinator here, always said this thing about there are no humanitarian solutions to humanitarian problems. If we have to keep people alive and we have to spend $1 trillion, we will do it. I will do it. If I have $1 trillion and I see somebody whose life can be saved by $1 trillion, I'll do it. However, when we say there are no humanitarian solutions to humanitarian problems, it means that while you are doing this much to keep these people alive, something else has to be done. The solution has to come through development. to peace, to investments in those things that will make it impossible for you to repeat the same humanitarian crisis all over again. So yes, there are, and when I told you at the inception that more than $7 billion has been spent, it's not money that just comes in like that. There are processes. You have what they call the Humanitarian Response Plan, which is done annually, and this is jointly done. The United Nations system, the government of Nigeria, state, local government levels, and federal, where you go do a proper needs assessment, even at very rapid states, because the condition of the population you want to serve is deteriorating every day. It's not going to wait.
Let's get right into it, Fred. So let's say the budget for a year for humanitarian assistance is $700 million. Can you just walk us through as much detail as you can afford? What is being bought? What are they using the money for? Are they buying tents? Are they building roads? Are they building hospitals? Are they buying clothes for people, beddings, or feeding? Can you just take us through as much as you can?
Humanitarian actors are very specialized, and that's why this is no longer about charity or feeling sorry. They're very specific skills. So you have those who are responsible for shelter. They want to make sure that every child that comes from the bush and is in that condition, and a mother, they have a place where they can put a roof over their heads, even if it's just a tarpaulin roof. Because at that stage of suffering, yes, we can look at it at times and think that, oh, these people are just buying tents. No, it saves a life. So you buy the tents. These people have to be fed. You buy the food. These people need serious medical attention a lot of times. You buy the medicines. These people are going to need a lot of external support in terms of how do you ensure that the trauma they've gone through does not impede their ability to return to a normal life, because what is at the end of it all? You want to restore some dignity in this person so that when, even after you fed them, they become useful citizens to themselves and to the society. And so the different humanitarian agencies are very specialized. They do all of these different things. And then, of course, you don't just snap your finger and the food gets to this person. There are huge logistic costs of moving this food. And by the way, a large chunk of this money is spent buying the food in Nigeria. This is not one of those circumstances where you have to fly in food from somewhere else.
So normally this should even affect the economy of
yes, of course,
of the country in a sense. Okay, so let me ask you now. So you came in 2016, doing this work thereabout.
Yes.
Now, can you give us an idea? So we know that at the point about 7 to 8 million, we're talking about 7 to 8 million Nigerians.
Correct.
So what is the average duration that the UN have to take care of the individual? So, for instance, the young man who was 8 years old in 2016 is probably now 13 or there. Can you give us so is it for that duration, or is there a point where people exit from the system? Somebody else comes in. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
I get what you're trying to say, but it doesn't work like that. The point is that as long as people have a need, the humanitarian community will continue accompanying that person.
So as the figures changed, or
the figures have changed reasonably.
So what explains the changes in the number? So it's now 8 million today, it's 7 million tomorrow.
One, first of all, the main cause of this crisis was the insurgency.
Yeah.
So I must give credit, to the security
agencies.
I mean, I've been there. I've looked at some of these young men and women in the military, in the front lines. I've been in situations where you're sitting down trying to engage them a little bit, and you look at a young man and he has to run into a jeep because they've just been informed that they have to move to the front. And these are 20, 22, 23-year-old Nigerians.
You're talking about the soldiers.
The soldiers. So what has happened, as I said, we can't ignore giving them credit. They've done incredible work. So the security situation itself has improved. Now, what that means is that the number of people in these extremely insecure places has diminished because more and more people are returning to normal life. So in transiting from your typical humanitarian assistance, you now have what they call durable solutions. This means that the boy or the girl, like you said, who's been gone through these camps has now grown.
Yeah.
Again, in some of these camps, I'll give you evidence where we try, even at the minimal level, to make sure that these children have access to education. That's done in the camps as well. So the durable solution aspect...
So do you have to hire teachers and stuff?
Oh, yes.
Hire teachers and nurses and
hire teachers,
and
nurses, train them. So, but you asked a very interesting question because I think that's where turning the corner really comes in.
Right.
What that means now is that even if most of these kids lost out on those critical ages of education.
Yeah. Those are the only time.
At the time, you now have to find proper ways that they come out with some basic skills. And that's where the development component really matters. Because what it means is that those people are not totally reliant on you to be feeding them every day to stay alive, but are now strong enough and calm enough in their demeanor. Because, I mean, you've seen some of this. So durable solutions means that they start getting skills. The young men and women who are turning 13, 14, 15 are trained in a variety of skills.
And is it part of what the assistant does?
Yes. This is integral. So at that minimal level, even if it still stays within the humanitarian context, you are now attracting development actors. And there are still agencies with, if you see what the United Nations Development Program is doing, you see what some agencies that rely. So that comes in. But to be very honest, Laulu, I hate to say this and people look at you and laugh, but we are a proud people. Can we rely on the international community to do this forever?
And that's where I was coming to that. So we got ourselves into a situation where the international community is taking care of our people to the extent that between 2016 and now, we're estimating about $7 billion that has been spent. And of course, you are thinking that what would have happened if that money was there? Two questions. What must we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then, since you yourself, you've been around for quite a bit in this area, even in talking about development, what has to change in the way that we do governance? What has to change in the way that we do governance to ensure that we don't come back to this kind of situation?
Two things. First, on the governance side, and here I must say, and you know me, I'm not frivolous with words. We're lucky. Lucky in the sense that we have a president who's committed to a certain level, but it's not encumbered by this over security dependent way of solving our problems. Because the mistakes we made, including the complacency component, was that, get soldiers, get budgets for the military, and it's a security thing and we've dealt with. So that aspect has changed. And even in that, we're lucky in terms of the characters involved. I think we're lucky because we have a vice president who lived it, worked it.
As governor of Borno State.
As governor of Borno State. And I'm
done.
talking Kashin Shettima, who understands what this is, and his successor, and then some of the other governors in the Northeast, including Governor Zulum. But what it also means is that as a country, we have to be very deliberate in understanding that when we are complacent, it is going to come to us. The impact of that complacency is going beyond the Northeast today. So when you see, whether you're calling it banditry or kidnapping and everybody's complaining, if we took care of our own when it mattered the most, what we are experiencing now in the rest of the country would have been minimal. Now, again, we can't be an island. So we'll always have to deal with development partners. We'll always have to deal with an international community that is not, amorphous. We engage with countries, we deal with governments, and so that aspect is there. And finally, just to let you know that the crisis per se has also left us with something that we must harness.
Which is?
I told you that 90% of those who are doing the humanitarian work today, even in the Northeast,
are Nigerians.
Are Nigerians. Those are the people who now understand, and we've lost quite a few.
In the front lines.
In the front lines. Beyond the soldiers who've sacrificed and signed up for it.
Yeah.
Young Nigerian humanitarians have died. Unlike soldiers, I've had the misfortune of calling families of young doctors, young nurses, to inform them that we found the body of your son.
Wow.
Or that we cannot identify where your daughter has been kidnapped to.
Our time is up, Fred. I wish we had more time to get into this, but thank you so much
Don't mention at all.
for coming. And I'm looking forward to your next assignment, after
anytime.
this. And there you have it for Inside Sources this week. I'll be back next week with another exciting edition. Thank you very much.